That was havefunteaching.com. All of those videos that you saw were free. There are videos there that you can pay for and songs as well, but there are a lot of really good free ones. What that helps with is students with disabilities need both the auditory, the visual, the kinesthetic, the movement. They need to hear it and see it. The amount of times that they said the word said, or the amount of times that they will say what volume is just enough for them to capture that. It drives you nuts after a while as a teacher if you watch it too many times, but really it's the exact amount that kids need to capture that new knowledge. So those are great sites for making sure you're getting all of the repetition needed to capture new knowledge. So I also wanted to make sure you remembered that what works for some students with a specific disability does not always work for everyone with that disability. We are all individuals. And so we have to make sure that even though best practice or research says this may work really well, that obviously for students with learning disabilities, repetition and visuals and movement work really well. If you then get a student who has autism and a learning disability, too much music could cause detrimental effects. So you want to make sure you're looking at the individual. But right now, initial research in the area of augmentative and alternative communications, they're called AAC devices, shows that assistive technology with static visual graphic systems is actually more effective for those with autism, whereas other users really might benefit from the speech generating devices. So again, pictures tend to be, the picture systems that have the pictures and the graphics tend to be more effective with students on the autism spectrum. Most students with learning disabilities need that visible, systematic, and explicit instruction. One thing that I do like about Have Fun Teaching that I use with my students is for the older students who still have not mastered those basic skills, and I do this with social skills all the way to reading and math skills. If you need to find a way for them to master the basic skills, often one way to do that without hurting their own self-esteem is to have them create a video to teach one of the younger classes that skill. So I would really like you guys, just like the boys in the video did, to teach our second grade about what a verb is or what past present tense is. And they can really start to go all at it. And while they're in the process of coming up with this creative presentation for the first, second, or third graders, they in turn learn what you're having them present. So a good way to kind of get that push in there too. But again, all students with learning disabilities, they do need that explicit instruction, and it needs to be visible and systematic. So apps, iPhones, applications, really what that's saying is that iSigns, which allows for communication between deaf students and others who do not know how to sign, it's an amazing device. You have to check it out, iSigns. The Picture Scheduler, which helps students with autism create and organize personal tasks in visual schedules. iPrompts provides assistance with understanding choices, events, and again, it's a visual tool. And again, we're looking at the individual. Are they visual, auditory, kinesthetic learners? If they're visual, we want to make sure that whatever system we choose has the visual graphic system in it. If they're auditory, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing has songs and rhythm and rhyme and mnemonic devices. If they're kinesthetic, we want to make sure they're up and moving. We want to make sure that whatever we're learning has motions that goes with it. And sometimes we forget about the interpersonal as well, and that is communicating with oneself or with others. Some students learn through communication, through communicating with others or with themselves, talking them through their own steps. So we have to keep that in mind as well. And that's one of the reasons that creating videos, creating lessons is so good for students, because it allows for that aspect to really be fed. So research tells us that discussion and interaction with other learners is extremely effective for knowledge retention. Again, when you're interacting with other learners, you retain knowledge. So we don't want technology to take away from those interactions, because that's how we're keeping that knowledge. That's how we're really retaining. So things like Skype or FaceTime, I know a lot of you have talked about getting different professionals in the field that you can't bring in for classroom presentations to do it via Skype. I think it's a great idea. I think it really works well. I've used it a lot in my own teaching. FaceTime Kid Blog is a safe and secure blog where students can really share their ideas, but you have control over what's eventually published, which I like. Drawing Pad, it's user-friendly. Really, those who don't even like art can manage this. And then you get to share this media through email or other social programs. It's a really neat one as well. But remember, one thing that I learned from someone who did the iPad initiative for the very first year for their whole school, after the initiative was over and everybody had a one-to-one iPad, she said, you know what, I really wish that we had bought one iPad for every 2 kids, because I feel like this year we lost that communication piece. That's extremely important knowledge for that school district to hear. You cannot lose the communication piece. That's how knowledge is retained. Research has proven that. So make sure they're using that technology to really retain information and to communicate what they've learned. The other thing we have to keep in mind with all of this is transferring skills. Students do not automatically transfer literacy skills they can demonstrate on a technology-based application to performance without the application. What that means is you may have taught a student how to read certain sight words on the iPad or on a laptop. That does not mean that they will then be able to read those same sight words when you give them a book. We have to make sure that they have the ability to transfer skills. We've found this a lot with social programming, where students with autism have watched social videos. They're great, informative, but sometimes they can't transfer that skill into this situation. So technology is helpful in allowing them to watch these videos and see these videos, but we have to help them to transition that learning into the classroom. So learning and practicing skills on a computer or other electronic device does offer an opportunity for transfer of what has been learned in more traditional modes of instruction in a classroom. What Smith and Okola are saying in this article was that learning really has to take place first through those mini lessons, that explicit instruction, that teaching. You can use the videos, you can use other things to pull in, but you can't let it teach your child. You really have to teach that child and let it reinforce, let it help you to enhance that instruction. But make sure you're not taking out the instruction in replacement of technology.